doing an all-day sit and watch workshop and a couple of days of hands-on. He's a really good wood turning teacher. He does this 3-sided rockabye box and threaded lid, and he does some really nice stuff.
And is it?
It's like the third weekend after Fairchild.
Oh.
Yeah, we sent an email out.
The 18th.
We sent an email out.
Oh, it's another one I didn't read.
17, 18.
Haven't gotten to yet. Oh, Cuban time.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I'm Lee Sky. I live up in Oakland Park. It's about 70 miles that way. And we're late.
140 with traffic.
It's that way. That's north, eh?
That one. Yeah, that one. Okay, well, you're close to that one.
Okay. I took a shortcut because 595 looked screwed up, and the other way I went was screwed up, and Gary got to his house, and we come down with Chrome. That was messed up a little bit too.
Chrome to the trail is great.
But
The
I'm
rest
here.
just sucks.
Welcome to South Florida.
Yeah.
We need more development and more building.
So you gotta give me a minute. I'm a little nervous talking in front of the crowds. So what do they say? Picture the crowd naked. Wait, before I do that, can you go sit in the back?
Me?
Yeah.
I think there's some other people
Put it in
right
the
here
back.
too. Everybody. Almost everybody.
It's a good thing you're old. It's a good thing you're old. Your eyesight is bad.
Yeah. My readers are up to 2.75 now. Okay, I'm going to do a demo. I've been doing some little layered, stacked hollow vessels and bowls, and there's a guy who's quite well known for doing this. His name is Jim McPhail, M-C-P-H-A-I-L. If you Google him, there's a congressman somewhere named Jim McPhail. So put in his name and wood or wood turning, and he'll come up. He's got a great website. He does little pieces like this. The biggest he does is 5 inches in diameter. They're just stacked up layers of wood. And my friend Dee Trudeau, who used to be a member of this club, she has 3 of his pieces that she bought at shows in his house. And they're about that big around and this tall, and they were $160, $180. And his prices on his website have gone up like another $100. So they're kind of neat. You can use little scraps of awesome wood you got left over, even plain wood. Like this hollow vessel is Tasmanian eucalyptus burl. This piece and this. In here, I believe, is Amboina burl. Where's those readers? Yeah, that's a piece of Amboina burl in there and the rim on the top.
Don't move it around so much.
I have some veneers in between of different colors. And if you could see on the camera, it says Banksia pod, and yellow veneer, black veneer, yellow veneer, bloodwood, yellow, black, yellow veneers, Banksia, yellow veneer, and then bloodwood up on the top. I'll pass these around so you can look at them. But you can layer them up and make them symmetrical, make them match. They can just be all mismatched pieces. Like this is the first one I made, and I think it came out really nice. This second layer down is actually a plywood from Europe. One of my buddies, a guy came into his lock shop and gave him a whole bunch of this and 2 other kinds of plywood leftovers. This was one of them. You put this into a piece and you turn it, and it looks like the rings of Saturn going through it. We had some nice sized pieces of this. And the guy imported a bunch and had his kitchen made out of this. So I can only imagine what that thing would look like. But I have royal
Did you dye
palm.
that stuff gray, or you came that gray color?
That's the way it comes. Just colored layered plywood. Kind of like the special ply, which comes. And
Where's that Baltic birch?
that's kind of plain. It's kind of all one color, but this is all different colors.
What's the name? What kind is it?
I don't know. The guy just dropped it off. And like this bowl This is a nice piece of curly camphor in here. You can see some of the curl, but I'm kind of disappointed the way the center section looks on the inside and out. You can see a nice ring of the shimmering chatoyance, but it's kind of plain. I was thinking of putting this back on the lathe and cutting a shallow groove and filling it with the turquoise like I put in the holes in the cherry burl on the top. I'm doing a show, 2 shows this weekend, so these have prices on them. Just ignore that unless you want to buy them.
Yeah, then you don't have to go to the show.
Yeah. First I hand it to Ralph. Let's go around this way. Yeah, if you drop them. Okay, Constantine's Woodwork is 3/4 mile from my studio, and they sell these veneers, which come in a lot of different colors, about everything you can imagine. They got this gorgeous light powder blue one, and the figure in it is just so incredible. But if you're putting it on a blank like this, you don't see anything but a streak of color on the edge. I mean, these, like this white one, the grain in it is extraordinary, and you need that to be on the top of a flat box or something. Like I have some camphor boxes over on the table where I did an inlay in one of them, and a piece of this would be really cool in there. But this is just to show you some of the veneers and the different colors that they have. Now these veneers are typically made out of a softer wood. They're pretty fibrous, and I'm going to glue up some layers with CA glue, and the glue goes right through this stuff. If you push it down to hold it down, it's going to come through and glue your fingers to it. Or if you hold it down with something else, it will do that also. And when I'm turning the edges, the wood, this stuff is so fibrous, it'll tear and chip out in there. So I'm going to turn it a little bit and then glue the edges with the thin, runny CA glue just to stabilize it so I can cut it cleanly. But in here is a lot of small leftover pieces from different turnings. And here's a piece of black and white ebony. And it was not in the finished piece, and I can't see it on that nice, beautiful piece of wood. I have, here's a little piece of tulip wood, some zebra wood. This is a ring of Amboina burl. And to put it in one of those little layered things, if you did it on the side, you're only going to see a little bit of the edge on the inside and outside. So I would actually stack them up and put this as the very top rim and kind of leave it a little wider so you can really see the burl going on it. That's some really expensive wood, and it's beautiful. Little slab of cocobolo. This is some royal palm. And the one little piece has the royal palm in the bottom, and the other hollow form has it in the middle. And you can really see the fibers on the end and through the side on that. This is Carpentaria palm, and I love this stuff. The dark fibers are about that thick going into it. It's just really nice. The palm is a nightmare to work on. Some of the worst stuff you could turn. It just dulls your tools in about 30 seconds. I got a bunch of little pieces of curly maple that somebody gave me. They're only about 1/4 inch thick, and this one I put some orange dye on it, and you can see how it really brings out the curl. This one has some blue dye. Just rock it back and forth a little, and you can really see it shimmering. Now, I would not dye this and then glue it up and then cut it, because you'll cut through the dye, but I'm going to take one of these, like these 2 layers are that. Once I have it turned, I'm going to take a small, fine paintbrush, and while this is spinning on the lathe very slowly, I'm going to apply the dye to the edge of this on the inside and out to give it a layer of color on there. And
You use an analyst,
yeah, the trans tint dyes.
you mix with alcohol.
Yeah, but you can mix them with alcohol or water or other things. I like alcohol the best because it evaporates really quickly.
Flashes off real quick.
Yeah. And Jimmy Clues uses alcohol in his dyes, and he'll actually light it on fire while it's spinning on a lathe, just to burn that alcohol off quick. But these, you see some of the chatoyance and the glittery lines on the side, but not too much. But again, if you make a form and you do a small hole and arc it down, you see that a lot more. So when I'm doing a piece, I try and visualize what I'm going to make. Instead of just gluing up a bunch of straight blocks the same size, I'll glue it up smaller to bigger if it's a bowl. And if I'm doing a hollow form, I'll glue them up smaller coming back in. That way, I can use some of the smaller and the larger pieces together. And it just requires a little thought and planning. Like this nice chunk of burl. I would either put that on the bottom or on the top or both, just so you see more of the burl. And that's what I'm going to use. I have some cherry burl pieces here that are left over. So I'll pass these around. You can look at them. And the rings in here, please don't test by flexing them. There's a piece of spectra ply in here. This is left over off of a peppermill or a birdhouse or something, has a hole in it. Your pieces that you glue up don't have to be squares, and they don't have to be knocked up, and they don't have to be solid round. It can just be a little leftover ring that you have left. But again, that requires some planning and partially turning what you have on there and then gluing this on in the right spot so you can continue on. This glue up of spectra ply is 8 segments that my buddy Tom did. He makes 8-piece bracelets, and at the end of his long strips he cuts, he always has these little triangles left over. So he started gluing them up like this and doing different things with them, making pendants and earrings and things. And I have this guy, Joe. He's 83 today. He comes to my studio 4 or 5 days a week, and once he saw that first one of those I made, he just went crazy. And I've only made about 8 of those, and he's probably got 40 or 50 of them done now, because he just goes nuts on them. Most of them are glued up pieces like this, and they're kind of all the same size and about that tall. They look like little colored shot glasses. And they're all over his house. But this would be the actual bottom of his turning, so you can look down inside and see this. So, and at Constantine's, they have little veneer samples. They're not highly colored wood, but they can be used for some of the layers in there. They've got a whole basket full of these, and they're free. Some of them are a little, we've taken some out. I think there's like 25 of them in. The code tells you what kind of wood it is. And so I grabbed one of those just for the heck of it. I recommend everybody always wear dust protection every time you turn. A lot of people don't. The dust can get you.
Yes.
It's always bothered me that demonstrators do not wear dust protection. So the new people seeing them, well, they're not wearing it. I don't have to wear it. You should wear these as much as you possibly can to protect your lungs.
Should also wear them when you run the chainsaw.
Yep. Chainsaw, bandsaw, grinder.
Yeah, bandsaw.
The grinder especially, because I last year acquired a Baldor grinder, which is 3,600 RPMs, and I got the CBN wheel on there, and I didn't read the directions that came with the wheel saying, take some rare earth magnets and put them all down in front of the wheel to collect the metal debris that comes off. And I was walking out of the back where my studio is into the front, and I have a metal cabinet right next to the door, and something grabbed me, and I have rare earth magnets holding papers and pictures on there. Every one of those was solid black. And I rubbed it, and it's just coated with powdered metal. And where's my grinder? It's around the corner, 12 feet over that way. How did that metal get around there? It's floating in the air. So it's not only wood dust and finish dust you're contending with and glue, there's metal particles. Like these tools have cobalt in them. These particular ones, that's a toxic metal. So you got to protect your lungs. Here's my wood turning hat. This is a Hurricane Irma rescue. This is that bottle brush that you sent me the email on.
Okay.
That's his hat. I've been waiting 4 years for this piece of wood. It fits my head exceptionally well. I mean, I can go way over like this. There's nothing
He's been
inside.
waiting for a messed up piece of wood to fit his messed
Yeah.
up head,
Yeah.
As you can see, it's a little warped and misshapen.
like your head.
Right? That's why it fits so well.
There's a
How
whole
does that work out
in
getting that bottle brush?
the whole-
I got that and some nice bottle brush girls about like that. I got my hat now.
Great.
Okay, I have a piece of Norfolk Island pine. This is my glue block. So, first thing I want to do is flatten up the face. These little pieces I have, they're cutoffs. I usually take one side and flatten it on the belt sander. If you try and flip it and do the other side, you're never going to have it perfectly level. That way when you build up your layers, they're going to be going like this, which a lot of Joes are like that. There's nothing wrong with that. When it's sitting there, nobody can tell that those are off 2 degrees or 5 degrees, and sometimes it looks kind of neat. But when it's spinning, you see it going do-do-do-do, and it's perfectly true. It's just that the layers are glued up at an angle, and there's no problem with that. So I flatten one side. Unless I have a bunch of nice wood, I can glue up flat. And that guy, Jim McPhail, he takes squares and he glues them up into a square block, or taller than it, not as tall as it is wide, depending on what he's making. And he cuts the corners off on the bandsaws. And those corners, with all the different layers and the colors, he saves every one of those. All his pieces are numbered. Like my friend Dave can call and say, I got this little hollow vessel, it's number 167. And he'll go, hold on, and he'll check his records, and he's got that little piece of wood glued on a piece of paper with all the information of every kind of wood that is. So he can tell you exactly what pieces of wood are in these layers. Well, how much time do I got?
How much you want?
Cool. I'm going to test out my new timer clock somebody gave me.
It's what?
28 minutes?
Sure.
42 minutes?
45.
45?
45.
Okay.
But for you?
13.
Well, haven't quite figured that out yet. All right, first thing I want to do is flatten this face and get it nice and true and flat. So it's Norfolk Island pine. Just going to start off with the parting tool. Need my safety glasses on, not my readers. Come and get rid of this nub. What I'm going for is just a true face on it. Is that better?
I'm right in front of Gary.
He's got the best view.
Scoot over.
Now,
How can you-
what I just
how can you
did
say no to
created a
that?
very sharp corner here. And it doesn't take any time at all to use this edge here to come in and just soften that up. Now I touch it, it will not cut me. Because I've been cut several times by the wood. It's just a little safety thing. Just come in, it's like a jagged steak knife spinning at 1200 RPMs. I want to check my flatness right now. Damn, I'm good. That's just perfect. Okay, now Norfolk is very porous. So if I took and just glued my bottom blank to that, this is going to suck the glue up so much that it won't hold. I've had them come off. So I want to take this off, get glue all over his lathe. I'm just taking the thin, runny CA glue, and I'm just going to coat it. This will seal it and stabilize it. And then the medium density glue will stick to it better. Now my blank for the bottom is only that big, so I don't really need to do this whole thing. Usually I'll just grab the can of spray lacquer and just give it one spray or two spray that seals it, and the glue will stick really well. If it's a porous wood like Norfolk, I guarantee you the glue is not going to stick. You can glue these layers up with Tight Bond or any wood glue. It'll work just as good. If you want to do epoxy, you can even do that too. Now I like to have a round piece. That way I can kind of judge which side it is. Okay, I want to just scuff this up just a little bit so it sticks. It's quite smooth. Hit it with the accelerator. Kind of eyeball it for centering. And that's another thing about Joe. We call him Slow Down Joe. He's always in too big a hurry. He jumps through steps and doing things and runs the lathe as fast as he possibly can and just slaps on the glue without thinking, and his whole blank will be like glued on way over here. So it's half the size he originally wanted it to be. Okay, now that's on there. I think I'll put a little more around the edge. Now CA glue can get you, the fumes can get you, so if you're here and you get a whiff and your eyes start to burn or your nose, just step back and blink your eyes, blow it out of your mask. Everybody knows the CA glue rule according to wood turning. Don't glue yourself to anything you can't pick up. I know people who have done that. Okay, and then don't stand in front of the spinning lathe. My buddy Larry comes to my studio. I saw him do this. He had some fine cracks. He did this. He grabbed the glue, went around the cracks, set it down. He did this. He went. And I just happened to look over and I saw this great big drop hit him right on the open eyeball.
Ooh.
So I shut my lathe off, I went for him and I grabbed him and he went, oh, I got glue in my eye. And I said, I know, keep blinking. I dragged him in the bathroom, grabbed the eye wash and rinsed it out. And it bugged him for a day, but it was okay. All right, I have a piece of cherry burl on here. This will be the bottom. I'm going to do a little bowl. Now this side is not true. So I want to true up the face of this and round it off also. This is side grain. So I need to cut across the side. side grain, we cut from smaller diameter to larger on the outside of our piece. All right, I got rid of all the flat spots. Get rid of the sharp edge. I'm going to come across it with the parting tool first. Everybody hear me in the back? Anybody not hear me in the back? Anybody not going to raise my hand no matter what I say I do? All right. I knew there was somebody. And I teach a lot, and every person I see, and I did this too, they come in with the parting tool pointing right at dead center. You need to start with it pointing up. There's a bevel here. If you're pointing up there, it cuts so much nicer than if you're coming straight in onto it.
Cuts instead of striking.
Yeah, it cuts quite well. Yeah, I still have a little high spot in the middle. See, when I put a flat edge on here, I can see light. So from here towards the center is higher than the outside. So I know I can come in and start cutting. I maybe want to tilt my tool a little bit towards the center and cut it down in there. And you could kind of hear that little vibration that was going on. Oh, on that one little small ball there, that little small one. If you look at this one, there is black veneer, yellow veneer, black veneer. Look inside. You see a black ring, then you see the yellow veneer. This is cut right down to that little yellow layer. And then you have the black layer on the bottom of that. So.
Want you have that?
Oh, yeah. This one's not for sale, so you can't buy
By the way,
it.
do you remember Thunderball?
Yeah.
Is that,
Well, I haven't put the blades in there yet. I'm not done. I have some sanding to do around with it.
that's right. It's
Goldfinger and
Goldfinger.
Goldfinger, And it's critical that you get the edge flat, because you got two flat areas glued up. If there's any space, you don't have a good glue joint. Okay, that's good and flat. I'm going to glue a couple layers of veneer on it. I have this nice piece of logwood. The red is really nice in some of those layers, or this. So I'm going to glue this on and then part it off, so I have a layer in there. And then repeat the veneers on the outside, and then glue this. This will be the top rim. So I can get at least 2 or 3 or possibly 4 more layers out of this piece right here. Okay, so I hold the veneers up here and look and see what colors show up the best against my base piece. And think about what my next piece is going to be. Does the black show up best alongside there? Or would the yellow show best? What about on this side? So I just kind of go back and forth and try and see. In that box that's going around with all the samples, there is a glued up layer. There's a yellow in there against the maple, and you can barely see it. And it just, you gotta, depends how visually grabbing you want. Because I had these at a show 3 weeks ago up at the Mounts Botanical Garden with the Palm Beach Club, and half the people who came by were grabbing those little finished pieces and looking at them. So if I figure maybe yellow, black, yellow. And these veneers come in different thicknesses. Like I have some black in 16th and some black Now some's a 32nd and some is a 16th thick. And you can double up the layers. So I don't like the black against that red. So if I go yellow, black, yellow, that might work. And the black looks okay against the cherry. But I think we're going to go with the yellow. And if you get cracks in your veneers, it's really no big deal. They'll glue right together. I've taken long strips, like if this is broke off, I get a good flat edge on the belt sander and I glue one on, put the other one next to it, glue it. You can't see that little seam. Just make sure there's no overflaps. So we'll put this one on here. I like to glue them straight up and down. Thank you for having a lathe with a lock. And the reverse. I'll do the gluing over here just so we don't glue your lathe to something we can't move, like the floor. Okay, now I want to have my layers ready and what I'm putting on top, because remember the CA glue comes right through this stuff. So I want to do yellow and then black and then yellow, and these have grain in them that run down, and I try and alternate the grain, which makes it a little stronger, but it makes it a little more chippy, because as this is spinning around and you're cutting it, you're hitting this right on the end grain. And they've had pieces pop out before. So we're going to do that, and then this goes on top. I just want to cut these corners off. Just regular scissors works. This will just help me eyeball lining up this next piece. It's a little big, so it needs to be cut down to match. Now, if you really want to get creative, you can save these little corners and glue them up into a mosaic. You want those, Dave?
What's that?
These little corners that are left over? Okay. Okay, so these are actually way big, so I want to cut them off a little more.
What's that? Has everybody seen the sample? The little bowl?
Front.
These?
Dave, front.
Okay, so I just took a pencil and the piece I'm gluing it on, and I marked it so I could trim this down. And these are all just slightly bigger than they need to be. And the first time I did that, I tried to use wax paper, and the glue was getting on the paper and it wasn't absorbing and ran off and on my fingers. And so you need to be careful with this stuff. My buddy Herbie, he just turned 86. He's basically blind. He could see 60% out of one eye. Rides his electric bicycle 7 miles to get to my studio about 3 or 4 days a week. And he was gluing up something like this, and there was 3 other people over, so he went in the front. No, he had a box with a recess in the lid, was trying to glue these little black glass rocks into it. And I did one for him, and I set it on the big wood table on the bandsaw and do it, but he was out there blind and in the front office and doing that, and then he got too much glue and it ran over the edge, and then he was trying to do that and not get something stuck, and he tipped it, and he had all these fingers glued together, and this hand was glued to the piece of wood. And he'd come out there, help, help, help! So I grabbed a fingernail polish remover. It dissolves the glue. And I got the thing unstuck from him, but it took us 20 minutes to get his fingers apart. So those are going like that. This is going on top. I can see the roundness of this piece and the roundness of this, so I can judge where it's pretty close to the center. Or I have a hole here from a live center, and if I do it and try and get it on the lathe, I'm going to hit it with the accelerator so it sets up quick. It'll set it up a little too quick. Sometimes if I have like a solid piece on the lathe and I'm going to glue another one, I'll put the glue on here, spray that, put the tailstock on and shove it up, and that holds it right true in the center, right in that hole. Now I really need the glue around the outside. The center doesn't matter as much because that's going to be cut away. I'm going to rotate the grain, smear it around a little.
Consider wearing disposable gloves.
I find they're more trouble than they're worth doing something like this.
The medium PA?
Yeah, this is the medium CA. The thin will not hold. Herbie used to glue pen tubes in with the thin, and he had a couple failures where the tube came out. This is off just a little bit to one side, but there's not much we can do about it right now. Now I want to take the thin and go around the veneers so it soaks down in there and really makes it solid so it's not chipping flakes of it out. And I usually have a fan going. I can feel some of the fumes right now. I have a fan up here blowing down on my lathe, and that blows all the dust and chips down and away. How's your thing doing?
Good.
All recovered?
Yeah.
No more cane?
No.
All right. Okay, no stuff coming off. Now I'm going to start using the center. You can see in the camera, my center, I do not have the center point in here. This is not going to be true. That hole that was in there before is not in the center, so it'd be about impossible for me to take a live center and get it in the right spot. This cup here, this ring, it holds really well. I like this type of center also, especially the ones with this all the way big cone, not those ones with the big round cup that the lathes normally come with. See, with just this ring, it will hold almost no matter what that end is like. I can also true it up, which I think I'm going to do. Now, if you notice, my head is not right here. I'm putting my head over here in case this flies off, so it doesn't hit me straight in the face. Light cut. Just true that up a little. Now I have this to hold it in place. First thing I want to do is true up the outside. Then I'm going to part off a layer of the red. Just taking my bowl gouge, and I try and make sure all the pieces I'm stacking up are the same grain. Usually it's side grain. One of those bowls, well, maybe it's one that's at Constantine's. I had a piece of Wenge up about here, and it was in grain. Everything else was side grain. And I come up across, following the grain of everything, and I hit that Wenge, and a whole bunch of it chipped out deep down in there. So I had to make it probably 3/4 inch diameter less than I planned on it. Just because that wood was real chippy, fibery wood, and the grain was different than everything else. I'm cutting through the veneers very carefully till I have wood supporting at least on one side. True up the logwood. Do a little shaping at this time. Yeah, I can still smell that glue coming out of there. Unless you get a good hit with the accelerator, some of that glue might still be wet. Now, these veneers, I can tell they're lighter colored, especially the yellow. So I want to hit it with the glue again, just to make sure that it is solid and won't be chipping. Now I did not do it there, but and you can see the glue ran all over. If you squeeze the bottle a little before you tip it over, that controls it a lot better. And you can see it coming, and you can release, and it sucks it right back in instead of a big glob coming all over like that. Joe is notorious for that. He's glued the banjo to the lathe several times, and okay. See, I like the way that looks. I don't know. Yeah, you can see the yellow and the black and the yellow really well. Okay, now coming in with the parting tool, I'm going to switch to my fancy Starrett parting tool. Right, Dave? Somebody gave me a bunch of tools, and there was these 2 Starrett saw blades about like that. They are high-speed steel. I made this. I like it so much, I sold my Sorby one like this to somebody. Just because this thing is just so nice. I want to think about how thick I want this. If I make it too thick, it'll look out of place. The bottom, I'm planning on bringing way down to at least here for the actual bottom of my piece. I want to do a red, then another yellow, black, yellow, and then put this piece on the top. And then do a bowl where it kind of flares up and out. I could also part this off, put a couple more veneers in the middle, another layer of red, and then that piece on top. So. When you're parting deep like this, you always want to widen the hole. That way it will grab the tool. And you never cut all the way with the tailstock on. As your wood will undoubtedly kick sideways a little and pinch and grab. And you need to listen to the sound whenever you're cutting. You can tell the pitch of the sound is changing the smaller this gets. It's like when you're doing something thin, like my hat, or a hollow vessel, and it's getting thinner, the pitch goes up. This one, I think the pitch is lowering. That can tell you when you're getting close to something happening. Now I have about 1/4 inch left. Now this is side grain, so it will break off very easily. I can come close and then just give it a little snap. End grain doesn't break off that easy, but side grain does. Want to check with the straight edge. Boy, I keep getting better every time, I tell you. Must have been that meditation on that drive down here. Yeah. Well, he drove from his house. So I only had to drive out to West Davie.
And we broke our passport.
Now, it doesn't matter if the center section is low. My glue joint is going to be out here. See, like from here on out is my final product. This is all going to be gone, so it doesn't really matter. Anybody see where my piece of sandpaper went?
Right there. No, on the bottom shelf.
Oh. Boy, you're good.
Thought it blew out by Virginia.
That's why he's president. He knows everything.
Boy.
Just want to rough it tiny bit so the glue sticks better. And that's really important on oily woods, like cocobolo or ebony. You got to have a little bit of a rough surface for the glue to stick the best. Now when I take this off, glue up my next layer. So I think I'll just do a layer, 2 layers of yellow, then glue this piece back on. Except I don't have a flat surface here, do I? How much time we got?
15.
What?
15.
Okay, I'll bypass that step. But I could like glue yellow in there, and then I'd have to put this in the chuck, true up this surface, or since it's one surface, I could go to the belt sander and carefully flatten it and then glue it on and part it off again. There are many ways to do it. We'll just go with the regular. Lock this. Now it's okay for you to use your tools as long as you put them all the way in up to the ferrule. I had a guy call me once. He said he'd been trying to get the chuck off his lathe for 45 minutes. And I said, well, open the jaws, take your big bowl gouge, put it in there sideways, and give it a pull. And it came right off. Okay, we're going to go with the yellow, black, yellow again. So I need a piece of yellow. First I want to draw it on here. And then plan to make my cuts a little bit bigger. Back, I'm going to draw twice on here. And let's draw it on a piece of the black. Now this is almost square, so I'm not going to cut it up just to get a little corner out. I can use this on a bigger piece. And this isn't the only way you can do this. There are many ways to do everything. This is the best way, though.
Well, is this the way some normal people do it?
Yeah. Those normals, they do them that way.
You know, normal,
That's the way Abby does
it's
it.
really only.
Abby normal.
Abby normal.
Hey, normal, it's only a setting on a washing machine.
Yeah.
That's the old ringer washers with them two rollers that you
They still have normal.
got it through. Now these veneers, the grain runs this way. You can break them that easy. It comes right apart. So you have to treat them gently. And again, there's all kinds of different ways. I mean, Joe has a whole bunch of different colored Spectra plies, little scraps here and there, and he puts together the most god-awful combinations you've ever seen in your life. And he brings these glued up blanks in, but when he gets done with them, they actually look pretty good. And he's got to have. I was doing a show in Wilton Manors, and him and his wife came to buy plants there, and they saw us turning on my little bitty Carbotech lathe and my sales tent. So he stood there for 4 hours on Saturday, and Sunday he came back and stood there for 5 hours. So then he came over and took 4 classes, and now he comes over all the time. And that was March 2.5 years ago. He's got to have over 400 turnings in his house now that he's made. Because every day he comes over, he does 2 or 3 of these little bitty ones. And usually whatever I'm working on, he starts that up. And his daughter, who's president of United Way, Broward County, that first year, she came and or texted me and said, "Hey, Joe's birthday's coming up. I want to get him some stuff for his wood turning. He really enjoys it." And I said, "Okay." And I met her at Constantine's, and I showed him pictures and talked about making these little stacked pieces, and he liked them. And so she bought $200 worth of boards, 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch, veneers, just all kinds of them, and a couple of books. And Joe never used any of that wood till I made that first little bowl. And he kept coming over to my lathe and go, "Ooh, that's cool. What is that? Wow." And then he just went crazy making them. That's all he wants to make now. And the black is a little thicker, so I'm not concerned, but this yellow, boy, that glue comes through it right away. I'm going to do this one upside down so I can eyeball it. Now, if I decide not to use this whole top piece, I can go in from the end with a parting tool and cut a ring out, which is going to be at least 1/4 inch. And I can use that on another one to stack up. Or I can use it on an inlay in the top of a box, or something like that. Oh, pretty true, isn't it? Yeah. Now I still want to use the tailstock as much as possible. Now there's not really any glue here in the center portion unless it really flared out. So I could come in with a parting tool here and probably take out the center core. And the way this edge sticks out so far, I could cut in here and take off this ring. There's, if it's a plain piece of wood, I'm just going to cut it off. But if it's something really nice, I want to use every little piece, especially if I paid money for that piece of wood. It's not like you go to Hurricane Irma Wood website and pick up all the wood you want. Everybody get enough wood from the storm? I had so many people calling me. Got some mahogany, got some mahogany. Oh, how about black outlet? Want some live oak? Oh, I hate oak. Then I got the bottle brush burl call. That was, thank you for that, by the way. Sometimes you're all right, Ralph.
Yeah, I try to be.
About every 3 years on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay, now I
6
forgot
Tuesdays a month.
to hit the veneers with the thin runny glue. So I'm going to do that now. And if you notice, I did put a towel down on the lathe.
Thank you.
Catch any drippings. Now, one guy who used to be in our club up in Broward, he had some big voids in there. So he took a whole bunch of the medium glue and filled up the hole, put some shavings on it, more glue, and hit it with the accelerator. And he did this, and a little bit later he goes, okay, that's dry. Turned it on, picked up the gouge, and starts cutting, and he hit a pocket of that glue, and it spritzed. Fortunately, he had a face shield on. And the second mistake, he took off his face shield and grabbed a paper towel and went, which ruins the face shield. The CA glue actually compromises the polycarbonate face shields. So if you get too much on there, it's breaking comes a lot sooner than normal. And then he cleaned up the lathe cussing, and then he went, and a great big drop hit him here and glued his left nipple to his shirt. He said I could tell the story all I want. I can never mention his name. I give my word. I keep my word. You know him, Gary. Couple of you people know him. That's not me. So
Gary, what did you do to get your nipple out?
It's not Gary either.
I just put a ring through it.
And then he called me and said, what do I do? I said, don't you have the debonder? He goes, no. I said, your wife has nail polish remover. Just keep putting it on there, 20 minutes or so. And it came off, and then I hung up, and I called about 10 people in the next 5 minutes. That was a long time ago. I still laugh about it. Now, I don't usually do this, but since this rim sticks out so far, I'm going in with the parting tool to hit those veneers to see how they will cut. Since I stabilized them with the CA glue, it's cutting fine. If I didn't do that, this thing would be popping and shredding and tearing up. Whoop. Like that. Well, that was the cherry burl. See, I'm just cutting it right down to the edge. Okay. Now this does stick out further than I want, so I am going to go in and cut a ring out and save that. I might even give it to Ralph if he wants it. What do we got? 5 minutes left?
You can make a nose ring for it, for Ralph.
Yeah, about.
I'm getting my thin parting tool. I have room to come in here from the side. I can eyeball the edge there. Need to widen the hole a little bit. You want your cutting edge about on center line when you're doing this. And you can hear it. Did you hear the sound when it was almost through? It just got a real high pitch.
Lee, what do you mean when it's supposed to be on center line? What does that mean?
Okay, between the point that's in here and the point that's in here, there's a line. That's the center line of the piece. And if I have the tool, okay, we have the center right here. So if I put a pencil line all the way across, that's the center line, height-wise. So when I bring my parting tool in, the cutting edge should be touching right about on that line. If you have it too high or too low, it cuts the grain in there, but then you're getting it on a curve, and this top edge and the bottom edge can be hitting. If it's right on center, there's less chance of interference up here and below. So now I have a nice cherry burl ring that I can add to something, unless you want it.
Here's the box over here.
I have a thing here for you. All right, I want to finish my outside. Bowl gouge again, coming uphill since it's side grain. This is a 3/8.
You can use 3/4.
That's what I call it anyway, 3/8. Just trying to get a nice little shape for this bowl. I'm going to do a straight side, a little straight edge up here, just for a change. And a lot of the guys up in the Broward Club, they try and make the biggest darn thing that they can make. And you can make some exceptional, extraordinary little bitty pieces, or pieces like that. And I know people that do that. They sell them for $3,000 or $4,000 a piece that big. So takes a lot less time. Get rid of that sharp edge. I don't like that little corner there. Okay, now get this out of the way. Now I can hollow it out just like a regular bowl. Also, since I have this piece, I know I didn't put much glue in the center. I'm going to see if I can save that little chunk of burl. It may work, it may not. Trying to get the cutting edge on center line. And watch how I'm holding the tool. It's tight against my body. I'm doing this. I'm moving my body. I'm not just out here doing my arm. Uses a lot less energy. It's a lot more stable. Have more control over the tool. Well, we hit the veneer, so I don't know if that piece is going to come out. Nope. We'll just chalk that one up. And you need to adjust your tool rest a lot, according to the tool you're using and how you're using it. I like this fatter post on a skinnier, the fatter top on a skinnier. The thing about this is you can see as I go down through the layers, they show up so you know how deep you are. Now, you have bevel rubbing cuts, and then you have scraping cuts, where the cutting surface up here touches the wood is 90 or less. Everything in between, absolutely rubbing that bevel and a scraping cut, is prone to catches and dig-ins. And newer people and intermediates, you need to understand that all your cuts need to be riding that bevel on a bevel rubbing cut. You can do it with every tool. You can do a scraping cut with every tool. And no matter what shape you go, you need to adjust the tool so the bevel of the tool is gliding on that wood. When you get 1/2 a degree off, you're not doing a bevel rubbing cut. And that's all there is to it. That's when the whole cut changes, the sound changes, the chips change, and it's riskier on what you're doing. We can also hollow these out with a scraping tool. This is a round nose scraper with the tool flat, with the bed of the lathe. The cutting edge where it touches the wood needs to be on dead center or slightly above. This is below center, so I need to raise the tool rest. Okay, now I'm angling it down a little. If it was level, it's slightly above center. That's safe. You will hardly ever get a catch like that unless you move the tool in such a way, like lifting this edge. It's going to grab and dig down. Now this is side grain, so my best cut is from the rim towards the center. If it was in grain, my best cut is from the center towards the rim. It's just following the grain of the wood. Sharpen a pencil with a knife like that. Right here, the grains are this way, actually, so you sharpen it there. You cut from here down. In grain, the grain's like that, so you cut this direction, from here to there. I want to switch to a square scraper. This is the same square blank, so I don't need to adjust the height. Back to the round. Now if the bottom or the top edge is flat, or the outside surface is straight flat, you can cut left or right. But if it's curved, you really should follow that grain. And you can cut against the grain. Some woods will allow that. Oh, nice burl in the bottom, burl on top. Okay, at this point that's done inside and out, I would go ahead and sand all the surfaces. I'm going to shape the outside a little bit more. If I decided to, I could even put a foot on here. Changing over a spindle gouge, I'm going to be cutting against the grain down here. This is some hard cherry burl. So it usually cuts pretty good. think I want to do a small foot on this bowl. Were there bring back raffle tickets around? Did we do bring back raffle? Okay. Okay, now I'm going to part it off. I'm trying to angle the parting tool, so I'm going underneath a little bit. Okay. Nice little stacked bowl. Put a little nub on the end. I can whittle that off with the gouge, or I have a grinding burr on a Fordham. It's like a giant Dremel with a flex shaft, and I usually just buzz those off. So there you have it. And the layers and the patterns are up to your own imagination or whatever wood you have or your talents. Any questions? No? I explained it too well?